Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of FSI DFS. I'm McRuler 31. I'll be covering the 4-game main slate for Draftkings on Thursday, 5/20. If you're looking for the early content, McKinley 412 did a separate video for that, so check out our channel. I'm sure you'll find it there. Being it's only a 4-game slate, I think we'll just go game to game here. The nice thing is there's really no weather concerns. So let's get right into it. First game up is going to be Philadelphia Phillies against the Miami Marlins. We have Sandy Alcantara versus Vincent Velasquez. I think Velasquez probably going up against the Marlins is going to be one of the most chalkiest pitchers on the slate. Probably have the highest ownership. He's 7.5K. Alcantara is definitely a decent pitcher, and the Phillies have been struggling to hit recently. He just needs to really worry about the top of that lineup: McCutchen, Harper, Hoskins, JT Realmuto. I don't know if he'll be in. He's been a little bit banged up. But 9.3 is quite a high price tag to pay for him. But then again, it might work on the slate. We only have really 7 pitchers to choose from because the LA Dodgers looks like going with a bullpen game. So maybe paying up for him might be an advantage. I do potentially maybe like if Vasquez is going to be chalky here, some of these Marlin bats, especially Chisholm leading off. He's been really good. Aguilar, Duvall, Dickerson. Anderson actually has really good BVP against him. So does Rojas. I think Rojas is hitting over 400 against Velasquez with 17 plate appearances. So it's a decent sample size there. Velasquez is an okay pitcher. He might do fine. I think he's going to be paired up in most of the DraftKings lineups on the small slate with Drew Smyly in the next game we're going to talk about, who's up against the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's okay. He's got some strikeouts, but he has some control issues. So let's continue on and see what else we can figure out for this slate. So moving on to the next game, like I said, Drew Smyly up against Will Crow, who statistically looks like one of the worst pitchers on the slate. He has the lowest K rate. And just statistically, he's not striking people out. He's not missing bats. So I think the Braves are in a really good spot here. Wind blowing in a little bit at 10 miles per hour, but still I think it's going to be in the 80s there. So that ball's going to start flying. So I definitely like Drew Smyly. I don't love him. He's been an okay pitcher. He's had some rough starts to start off the season, but I think against this Pittsburgh lineup that's really, really been struggling recently, I think he's going to be decent. So I like him as a pitcher. And these bats, Atlanta is pretty expensive. I think they're going to be a secondary stack because I think people are going to really look at the Boston-Toronto game for their bats. But Acuna, Freeman, Ozuna, Albies, Riley might be really hard to fit them all in. And we'll do a roster construction as soon as we get through these 4 games. So it might be you need to leave Albies out and then pick up either Swanson or Riley just to be a little bit different as we build there. So the game where I think a lot of people are going to look for bats and actually has 2 decent pitchers if you looked at it in a vacuum and not in this context in this smaller minor league ballpark. Nick Pivetta, who's been having a decent season. He's 5-0 and 3.16 ERA, and Mats is 5-2 with a 4.29 ERA. So they've struggled a little bit. I think Pivetta's given up home runs in the last couple of games, but he hasn't gotten the loss, so he's been able to get the rest of the outs needed there. Red Sox put up a lot of runs yesterday. They got to the Toronto pitcher early in the first inning, and then Toronto only put up 2 runs. I think the final was 7-2 there. So I definitely, I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to go with Pivetta here as my SP1. And I know Toronto has been hot. They've been putting up runs. I know they only had 2 yesterday, but they have struggled at points against right-handed pitching. They're in the middle of the pack with strikeouts, about 21%. But Pivetta has been good at limiting damage. Like I said, he'll give up a home run. here or there, but he's got, I know he has the highest fly ball percentage on the slate, but he has the lowest home run per fly ball. So they're hitting the ball up in the air, but it's not going out of the park. And here's the thing that I like the most about this game. The winds are going to be blowing in at 18 to 20 miles per hour. So that's going to mitigate hard contact and power also. So I really like Pivetta here. I think I'm going to take him over Vasquez. So I think my pairing is going to be Vasquez and Smiley. I'm not going to get as many bats as the people that are taking Vasquez and Smiley, but I think it's going to be worth it. I think it's going to make my lineup different. And I think Pivetta is going to give me enough that I need against this Toronto lineup to get me where I need to go. Matt's on the other side. I'm really not a fan. The Red Sox are not the lineup they used to, but JD and Xander have always been good against righties. I think he's decent against, lefties. Matt's the lefty, so JD and Xander hit lefty as well. Verdugo, not so much. Devers, he's a good hitter overall. But then you have like Vasquez and Renfroe. Dahlback, even though he strikes out a lot, he has some power there at the bottom of the lineup. So a cheaper guy to do a wraparound stack there. So like these Red Sox bats. I'm not saying don't play the Toronto bats. I think, I will have a share of them. And if I play some lineups without Pivetta in it, but they're just so expensive. And I think on this 4-game slate, you really need to draw a line in the sand and make yourself different. So I'm not going to, and tonight's a good night for bankroll management. You don't want to go all in and play as much as you usually do on like an 8 to 14, 15 game slate. Be a little bit more conservative. But if you're playing in tournaments, you can't really play like Vasquez and Smiley as your pitchers, even if you're getting different on bats. You're just going to have to go home run hunting and just hit the one guy that's like under 5% owned if you have any chance of getting up there, even trying to win it. So I think, I'm going to fade Toronto if they're going to be very popular, and we'll see what happens for that. The final game that we have is the Los Angeles Dodgers against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Merrill Kelly has been slated to pitch, I think, for like 4 straight days here for Arizona. So I don't know if this is actually the day. And I hear a lot of people through the industry saying that, he's a really good pitcher to target with these Dodgers. The Dodgers are great hitters, but looking at Kelly's numbers, they're not that bad. He's actually the highest ground ball percentage pitcher on the slate. His home run for fly ball is actually the second lowest next to Pivetta, and against a lot of the other matrix like right-handed batting, which I think most of the Dodgers are. They can mix and match well. They can throw a lot of lefties in there also. But anyways, he's really not that bad. He's not like a gas can. I know he has had some bad history. I'm not saying that he's playable here, but 8.8. But this season, I have a theory. Like seeing Kluber throw a no hitter last night, seeing a Tigers pitcher throw a no hitter, seeing Baltimore pitcher throw a no hitter. I think like Major League Baseball has this like magic sack of balls with like rocks or something. They talked about having like juice balls, but I think they have this like secret stash of that they'll send to a random parks just so this like average pitcher that you never ever would think would throw a no-hitter in their lifetime actually gets one, and maybe like the wiffle balls or something. So not saying that Merrill Kelly tonight's the one that's going to go out there and throw a no-hitter against the Dodgers. And 8.8, like he'd definitely be extreme GPP if you were to play him. The Dodgers are a little bit banged up, but I don't think he's as bad as people portray him to be. However, I still could see the Dodgers as a stack tonight. I like with these younger guys that they're getting in here, or even older guys with the pool hosts, the different flexibility that you have. And I like the different roster positions that they're bringing. Like Lux is eligible at second and shortstop, and he's a lefty against a righty here. Teshugo, who they picked up, I believe he was sent from Tampa Bay, he's first base or outfield eligible. Max Muncy, second base, first base eligible. So there's a lot of flexibility in your roster here if you're building, if you're trying to stack them against Merrill Kelly. So that's definitely an option for bats. And then on the Arizona side of it, they're starting out, I believe, with Jimmy Nelson is the opener, and then Yusita is coming out, 4K pitcher. you can take a flyer on him in GPPs. I think you'll see some people do it and have some ownership because you use a 4K pitcher and it lets you stack pretty much the whole Toronto and Boston, or Toronto and the expensive Atlanta bats, or Boston, Atlanta, however you want to go there. So he'd probably get 50, 60 pitches. Arizona, they're middle of the road. They've struggled at times. They don't have a super high K rate, but there are some Ks in that lineup. They're getting healthier. I think Marte's back now. Was out for a little bit. So that pretty much summarizes the slate. So let's look at some roster construction. So if somebody is going with a chalk build and they are going to take the Pavetti or the Smiley and Vasquez build, I think the next thing is they're going to look and see and probably take Varshero as catcher. He's got the split advantage against Nelson, who's opening as a righty, and the long reliever guy that's going as a righty. Also, he's only 2.2K, and he bats usually in the middle of the order too. So, and he's also outfield eligible. So, I think, if you throw those three guys in, that gives you $4,429, which is a good amount of salary. I think people are going to either stack Toronto or the Red Sox. And again, I prefer the Red Sox stack. And if you take 4 Red Sox, so take Kiki, take Xander, JD, and Renfroe, and you have the flexibility of Kiki to either play him at second or the outfield. If that's the build you want to go over in cash, and I'm fine with this in cash, then you can get a nice Brave stack with the Red Sox stack, filling in at first, second, if you play Kiki in outfield, or you definitely play Riley at third, and then you'd have to figure out if you're going to play a Braves outfielder or play Albies at second base and play Kiki in the outfield. So that's definitely viable, and I think that's a very strong cash build. But if you want to get a little bit different, like I said, I'm going with the Pavetta Smiley build. Going to still take Varshero there. And there's a couple builds I've looked at. I'm keeping my core of Red Sox with JD, Kiki, Xander, and Renfroe. You can throw a nice Marlins stack in there too if you want to go up against. That definitely gives you some leverage because a lot of people are going to Vasquez. So if the Marlins hit like Aguilar, Chisholm, Anderson, like I said, a good BVP, and then you might have to go down from Renfroe, and because you might not have enough. But if you want to pivot off one of them, then you can these Marlins, or if there's a 2K catcher, that gives you the 2K to get Renfroe back in your lineup there. For some reason, if somebody comes out at mid-price a catcher, and you could throw them in there. With only 8 teams, it's not likely, but something could happen. So that's one of the builds that I'm considering. I also like doing Red Sox and Arizona. You can get a really nice stack there with the 4 Red Sox I've been mentioning. And you can play like Smith and Escobar at first and third, and then figure out if you want Kiki at second and take an outfielder from Arizona, or put Kiki at outfield and pick up another second baseman. You can also move Escobar to second base and pick up a third baseman someplace. So there's a little bit of flexibility there in that build. Again, that's with pitchers Pivetta and Smiley. The other one is if you want to stack the Braves and Red Sox, that works too, but you can't get the full Red Sox. No, you can't get the full Red Sox stack. And in that one, I took, like I said earlier, the Braves. I took Freeman and I took Acuna and Ozuna, and then you have to figure out, are you going to pay up for Albies and then try to get Riley and Swanson in, or are you just going to go cheap at third, shortstop, and the other outfield spot? If you can play Teshugo in your lineup, he's I think almost mid-price. Maybe he's like 2-1 out there. Yes, he's 2-1. So that opens up some salary for your other 2 spots. I like playing Riley and Swanson, skipping Albies, throwing Kiki at second base of the other outfield spot, and that gives you a nice lineup also. And then the final build that I'm looking at would be taking the Pivetta, Smiley, and the Dodgers. And like, there's so much flexibility here because you can mix in, if you go Turner, That's Muncy can go at first or second. If you leave second open, Kiki can just slide right into there. You can put Will Smith in your catcher, or you can play Varshugo. You can move Varsugo or Varsho, the Arizona catcher. That's 2.2. You can put him in outfield. There's cheap outfield. Teshugo can be first or outfield. There's like so much flexibility. Lux can, if he moves up in the lineup, even if he's like down in the lineup, he's still lefty righty matchup. There's like a lot of good plays here that you can mix and match and build a solid lineup. So just to kind of recap, I think the chalk is going to be Smiley and Vasquez with either a Blue Jay or Red Sox stack, mixing in some other. For one of my favorite cash builds, is taking Pivetta, Smiley, the Red Sox, and mixing in some Braves. But in GPPs, you want to be a little bit different. So I think if you take like Pivetta, Smiley, you're still differentiating yourself off of a lot of chalk in tournaments, and then going with filling in some Marlins bats. Even if you want to get really crazy, go with like some Pittsburgh bats against the Braves. I think that would be the least likely scenario to work out. But baseball, stranger things have happened. I do think like the Diamondbacks are in play against the Dodgers. Dodgers are strong against Kelly. A lot of flexibility, especially with the players' positioning and their salary. And overall, I like the weather. But thank you guys for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow to cover Friday's slate. So it's probably going to be a bigger slate later on. So we're probably looking anywhere from like a 10 to 15 game slate. So those are a little bit easier because everybody's not going to have the same lineup. So hopefully we gave you some choices today, and hopefully you'll be able to build and see some green screens. So if you have any questions, reach out to me on Twitter, MegaRuler31, and our information bio here if you want to join our Discord or our FSI community. And there's lots of free stuff to offer you there. We're here to help you. We do have premium services and VIP packages that cover all sports. So check us out. And again, if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Give us a like, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time.